What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the BamaInsider YouTube channel. It's time for Monday Night Quarterback, presented by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. We do this every Monday night, 7 o'clock, break down Alabama's games. Lot to talk about this week, a 52-49 loss to Tennessee. Like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up. That's a way of saying roll tide. Look, a little bit of grief this week, but that's the way it goes when you play a really tough schedule like Alabama does. Take your hat off to Tennessee. A classic game, and unfortunately, our guys ended up a little bit short, but still one of the best games of the season. Hit the bell so you know when we're live. Great to talk to you, Clint Lamb. Let me say a little bit about Westgate first. Right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's like a field goal kick away from Bryant-Denny. You're right there by the Walk of Champions, Denny Chimes, the Strip, campus, all that stuff, westgateal.com. There's a couple of units that are still for sale. 1 to 3 to 5 bedroom units that go from 900 to 3,000 square feet. You got the incredible layout there with the Skygate Club. That's where we do all of our post-game shows. We'll be there Saturday after the game. All right, Clint, I can't wait to hear what you thought. Let me just tell you what I thought so you can kind of see where we're kind of in the same spot. Alabama defensively, the secondary got thrashed. Maybe they need to fake injuries to slow down teams a little bit. They've refused to do that. Tennessee used it to their effect, and a lot of teams do. I mean, look, it's the way that the game's played. But Tennessee's got a passing attack that was dynamic. But Bryce Young was Alabama's superstar on Saturday. And despite all the mistakes, the Heisman Trophy winner showed that he's the best player in the country. He's not going to win the Heisman again, but you know what? He's still incredible. He might be the best Alabama player of all time. I've heard some former players say that. I'm still very disturbed by the penalties, the timing of the penalties. I'm not a guy, and I've been following Alabama for 30 years, that ever says that about the penalties. I just the timing of them, the consistency of the way that the game was called. I totally agree with Nick Saban. If you watch the post game show, I mentioned that. And honestly, with just the world of gambling like it is right now, maybe you have like some kind of commission. I mean, you can go out and bet. Who knows? I mean, I don't. I've just been trying to find out why one team got called a certain way and another team got called a certain way. Particularly the Kool-Aid interception, the Bryce Young targeting that wasn't called. They don't even know what down it is. And when you're talking about 18 to 5 or 6 in penalties, some of that was Alabama's fault, but the game would have been won. And the thing that disturbs me the most is, just as a gambler, if they don't call that interception, Bama covers the spread. You're talking about millions of dollars in the other direction. All right, that's how I feel. But I also want to say this, that Tennessee deserved to win the football game because they made fewer mistakes. And as much crap as they talk, and they're really letting us know about it today, I tip my cap to them because they played a hell of a game.
Yeah, I've noticed several brand new Tennessee Twitter accounts that have been made in October of 2022, and I wonder if any of those had previously never had a Twitter account because Twitter didn't exist, or at least not in the current form the last time that Tennessee won. But hey, hats off to them because they got it's kind of like LSU's 2019 offense in this sense. It's not as talented from an NFL standpoint, but you had a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. You had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back. You had Joe Burrow, who could beat you both with his arm, and he was very underrated as far as his mobility. So he could strain defenses that way. And the reason that I bring up that 2019 LSU offense is because it really didn't matter what you did, because they could attack you in so many different ways that whatever you tried to stop, it's like, how do you want to get beat today?
Right.
And that's kind of the way that it felt on Saturday, because you got to look, Hendon Hooker, he can throw the football extremely well. His deep ball is fantastic. He throws with a lot of accuracy. He takes care of the football, but he also brings that mobility factor a lot more than probably even Joe Burrow. But then you've got, a couple of running backs who are very effective. Did they have any explosive plays against Alabama? Not really, but they were consistently getting, 5, 6, 7 yards pretty much anytime they ran the football. They had, Ramel Keaton. He ended up having a great game. Brew McCoy made some timely catches, obviously, the first catch of the game. And then, down the stretch, he also had that catch on the last drive. And then you had, of course, Jalen Hyatt, who was the superstar of the game. And I just think that between all that different stuff, and you talk about the play calling and the fact that they knew how to exploit matchups, put Alabama in a very difficult situation. It was a wonderfully called football game. It was a wonderfully executed football game on Tennessee's part. And, I look at the secondary, and I will say, I understand that a lot of people are really upset with the secondary. You've got to understand, there in no scenario should DeMarco Helms, a safety who's not even known as a cover safety, he's more of a guy that, working downhill, stopping the run, working his way up into the box. That's the kind of safety that he is. And you're asking him to cover a vertical threat like Jalen Hyatt down the field, turn and run with him after he's already got momentum because you're playing off coverage, by about 10 to 12 yards. I just think that he was put at a disadvantage from the jump. And, in that situation, when you're going nickel and they're exploiting him, and then, obviously Malachi Moore when they went more dom. Same thing with Malachi Moore, by the way. He is technically a nickel corner, but he's more of a safety. He's not going to be the kind of player who's going to be able to carry guys vertically down the field and have a lot of consistent success. So I feel like that, they were put at a huge disadvantage doing things that they're not good at doing. And then on top of that, I think that in those situations, you've got to be able to get your pass rush. They've got to be able to get home, and they didn't do that nearly enough. So I do think that the secondary didn't play a great performance, but I also understand that, Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, those guys have got to come through. When you've got Jalen Hyatt, lining up against DeMarco Helms, you can't expect him to be able to do that consistently and have success. You've got to help him out. And I don't feel like the secondary got enough help either. So I think it was more of a collective thing.
Hopefully we'll see these two teams again. I would love to see the rematch, neutral setting in Atlanta or maybe the college football playoff. But I agree with everything you said, and I mentioned something. I thought about this. Every time Alabama's offense would get going, magically Tennessee would have an injury to slow things down, right? That's the way college football is played by a lot of teams, not just them, a lot of teams, right? Alabama and Nick Saban have been adamant about not doing that, but it may be time to do that. I mean, look, if that's how you get your cheetah package on the field, then maybe that's how you do it, right? I mean, it's Alabama looked so overmatched dealing with Tennessee's offense in the game. Watching guys run wide open down the middle of the field, I don't know that I've ever seen Alabama get lit up like that. And you're right, it wasn't just the secondary. They didn't get any pressure on Hooker. I'm watching, Alabama's QB, Bryce Young, get pounded in this game. And, boy, he is so tough. I mean, Wow, he's tough. But they barely laid a hand on Hooker.
Yeah, and to me, that was a big problem because you've built your entire defensive scheme around your edge play, right? I mean, that's where Alabama puts the DeMarco Helms of the world on the field, the Malachi Moores who have certain strengths because they know that they can rely on that pass rush to be able to get home and take pressure off of the secondary. And so you can play to their strengths and allow them to help, stop the run and do those things. And you're not putting them in, strained positions very much. And I just don't feel like Alabama did a good enough job of getting pressure on the quarterback.
Right.
And, now granted, that doesn't mean that Malachi Moore deserves, any sort of leeway here. It wasn't a good performance from him. I don't think it was a good performance from DeMarco Helms. I'm saying that it's understandable given the circumstances. And Alabama did try to make some adjustments. They did go from, playing a lot of nickel early on to playing, a lot of dime. That way that you got that extra defensive back on the field, you can kind of, ensure that DeMarco Helms isn't the one that's having to cover, Hyatt. But at that point, you've put Malachi Moore on the field, who is a better cover guy than Helms. But, at the same time, he's not a cover corner. I've seen people talk about wanting to put a third corner on the field, like an Eli Ricks or a Kyrie Jackson. And with Jackson, I think he's got the physicality and all those things to be able to hold up at nickel or in the, playing the star position. But I also think that, Tennessee can use tempo. They can do more traditional spread sets, tighten everything up, and then hammer the football at your star if it's not a guy who can, really stop the run extremely well. So I think that, like I said, I think Tennessee did a great job of, taking what Alabama gave them and exploiting it. And it really didn't matter what Alabama did. They had something to counter it. And that's just, it's good coaching. And I don't know what you do to figure it out, though, but I guess that's why they pay, Nick Saban and all these coaches the big bucks.
Yeah, right. I got a feeling that if we see these guys again in the postseason, that Alabama will be more prepared for it having seen it. I mean, the other part is that we haven't seen an offense like this. In a way, I think it's more dynamic than Joe Burrow and LSU in 2019, but at least it was on Saturday. Let's talk about Alabama's offense, though, Clint. And guys, as you hang out with us, hit us up in the comments section. Great to see all you guys in there, Brock and Mike and Big Buck and and everyone that kind of hangs out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. David, we appreciate it, man. Throw your comments in there, and let's kind of work through this. Alabama's won a bunch of championships with one loss, so this season's far from over. Clint and I both know that, but we're just kind of recapping the game on Saturday here on Monday Night QB. But like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and don't forget, be part of Bama on 3. It's easy to do now that it's BamaInsider.com. $10 gets you an entire year, or go for the little toe in the water, $1 for 4 months. So BamaInsider.com. You get all the recruiting with Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, who's coming up next. The site stuff with Clint Lamb, who's on now, and Jimmy Stein. And you're not going to want to miss any of this, as Alabama is going to try to fight themselves back to Atlanta. And they're going to have a rough road to do it. There's no more room for error after losing to Tennessee on Saturday. You mentioned it before. Bryce Young was fabulous, and I hate it that Jahmyr Gibbs dropped one ball. And despite just being amazing in the game, you do have that one drop, and I know some of you are going to put that up, but both of those guys are so good.
What I loved is that Alabama stayed committed to Jahmyr Gibbs after the return of Bryce Young. It's a question that I had. Once Bryce went down and Jalen Milroe became the starting quarterback, they started using Gibbs in more of a traditional running back role. He proved that he could handle volume. Alabama got him 24 carries and 5 catches on Saturday against Tennessee. And the yards per carry wasn't where it had been, up in the 7 or 8 or 11.4 like it was against Arkansas. He only averaged, I think, 4.3 per carry, but at the same time, he was effective. He was elusive. He made guys miss. And he also kind of got back to being more of a receiving threat. With Milroe as the quarterback, I don't think he was getting as many targets. I think he had 5 for 48 against the Vols and did some good things in the passing game as well. So having that dynamic presence in the backfield alongside Bryce Young, and now that you are starting to figure out how you can utilize both of them, because, Bryce still got 52 attempts in this game. So you didn't sacrifice his volume to get, Jahmyr Gibbs involved. I think that needs to be the recipe moving forward. And I don't think offense is really too much of an issue. People are going to complain about Bill O'Brien, and personally, throwing the football 3 times down there near the goal, down there near the red zone when you're trying to kick a game-winning field goal. I do agree. I probably would not have done that. I understand the logic behind it. I certainly do. I can see both sides, but me personally, I'm forcing Tennessee to take those timeouts because people are arguing, hey, if you run the football, they can just call a timeout and it's the same thing. Well, it's not, because if they get the football back with 15 seconds and they don't have any timeouts, it really limits what you can do. You've got to be able to do things that are beyond the sticks. You really probably need to throw outside, give yourself some opportunities to get out of bounds. I think at that point, they're not risking it. They're saying, okay, let's just, kneel it. Let's take this thing to overtime and see what we can do there. Because you don't want to throw a pick six or something, crazy happening, or give Alabama's pass rush, which even though it hadn't been great up to that point, that if you get, them obvious passing situations where they know 100% you're throwing the football, that's going to be a completely different story. So I do feel like that, probably throwing it 3 straight times down there probably wasn't the correct move, but it was a great performance from Jahmyr Gibbs. It was a great performance, an encouraging performance from Bryce Young after thinking, that we didn't know if he was going to be able to play. We didn't know if he was going to be 100% healthy. Right. He looked great. Probably one of the best performances I've ever seen him have. And hopefully he's able to continue to build off that.
Well, we need to pack up, right? Season's over. Move on. No, I'm just kidding. Season's not even close to over, Clint. I think where's Alabama go? I
think it's proven, man. Anytime that they've suffered a loss, their season's been over. I think all their national championships have come with undefeated seasons. So I agree with you. I think they need to just go ahead and pack it up. I mean, what 2 undefeated seasons out of the 6 national championships that Nick Saban's had at Alabama? So they're clearly not out of it. And it's a matter of getting some of this stuff fixed because Ole Miss is going to present some challenges offensively. I think Alabama stacks up well against the air raid offense. Mississippi State, certainly they can, present problems. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is going to be a cakewalk. This is going to be a tough test this week, especially after a very emotional letdown loss this past week. But I think that they're able to right the ship, and then you got to start worrying about bye week and then LSU on the road and then Ole Miss. They've still got some tough games coming up. So even though I still think that they're very much in it, and I do, right now I would still say that they're the favorites to get to Atlanta from the West. They've got to get some things corrected, including the defense, which, I don't know if I think it's a schematic issue. Like I said, there's no scenario where you need to have DeMarco Hellams covering Jalen Hyatt consistently or Malachi Moore. I don't know what the solution is necessarily because I've tried to come up with like several things, and I know how Tennessee probably would have countered it and exploited it. And so I know it's a tough position for Pete Golding and Nick Saban to be in, but you got to figure it out because, not only is Tennessee going to do it if you see them again, but other teams going to watch this tape and try to do something similar. Yep.
I could not agree more, my friend. Are you going to be on the tailgate show this week?
Oh, 1,000%. I had a blast this past weekend. Glad I was able to join you in person. And we'll get something going this weekend.
Look what I got here. I got to show this to you. Oh man, I was wearing this earlier today. We were debating whether I was going to wear this or not. This is my Trotter's Whole Hog T-shirt.
I got a tie-dye one in there. It's pretty dope. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's pretty good food.
It was a good time. Great food, great people. I was appreciative of you inviting me, man.
Oh man, you're part of the show now, brother. Well, thank you. And how can people find more at Clint R. Lamb on Twitter? They need to follow you on Twitter, or they need to check you out at BamaInsider.com. Right? Anything else you want to say?
No, I think we're good, man. It's a loss. It happens, but the season only gets more fun from here because now there's no room for error. You got to pay attention a little bit more if you're a fan, and all these games matter moving forward. So it's going to be fun, Mick. I can't wait.
Yep. Thank you, my friend. That's Clint Lamb, part of our Bama Insider crew, and another great job here on Monday Night QB. Let me remind you guys that the show is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. That's right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. If you're in the market, maybe you're just coming into town and you're looking for somewhere to hang, hey, Westgate's the place to do it. Or maybe you are looking to invest. You're looking to buy. WestgateAL.com won the 5-bedroom units. They are just fantastic. I mean, they're so awesome. The kitchens are amazing. There's great parking. You're right next to the Walk of Champions, Bryant-Denny Stadium, campus, the Strip, all that stuff. So check it out for yourself, WestgateAL.com. All right, let me bring him on. Let's talk some recruiting. Joseph Hastings, our guy who's constantly out there figuring out what's going on. So give the folks some good news, man, after a tough loss.
I wish I could deliver that, Mick. Obviously, look, it's a tough loss, and it seemed like everything that could go wrong went wrong for Alabama on Saturday. 17 penalties, 130 yards. Giving up all those touchdowns to Jalen Hyatt and Hooker, and even then, at the end of the day, they were still in a position to win the game. So it was kind of interesting to hear the recruit reactions to that victory for Tennessee, and then on the Alabama perspective, the loss at them. But overall, it doesn't seem like this is going to hurt Alabama too much on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, what was the recruits' reaction to the loss to Tennessee?
Yeah, pretty much, there was some disappointment from the commits. Obviously, you want to come out on top. You want to win every single game if you can. Obviously, that was going to be a challenge going into this matchup because Tennessee's a number 6 team in the country on the road in Knoxville. Neyland Stadium was popping, and, the recruits kind of recognized the uphill battle that Alabama was going up against. But, able to talk to a few commitments. They all ended it pretty much with Roll Tide. We saw a couple of tweets from some pledges tweeting out Roll Tide, and one of the commits did say the game was tough to watch. Obviously, that especially with how many points they were giving up, it was in some respect. But overall, the reactions were not necessarily positive, but it wasn't necessarily negative either. We heard from elite 2024 quarterback Julian Sayin, one of Alabama's top quarterback targets in the next class, and he told me that it was a good game by Bryce Young. He liked what he saw from the running game, and from an offensive perspective, if you're an offensive recruit, you like what you saw for the most part. You saw Bryce Young do his thing. You saw Jahmyr Gibbs have 3 rushing touchdowns. Defensive perspective, obviously not the best, but overall it wasn't like the sky was falling down. Those weren't the reactions we got from recruits.
Well, it's good news. And, normally a loss doesn't really affect recruiting, but sometimes it does. I mean, it definitely helps Tennessee because they can prove now that they can beat elite teams. But, it came down to a last-second field goal, and Alabama, they kick theirs, they win. So it's not like Alabama. We feel like Alabama was dominated. We feel like that. But guess what? Tennessee won on a last-second field goal. That's how close this game was. Alabama's back home. They'll take on Mississippi State. We really can't look past this weekend football-wise, but we also know that there's going to be some big recruits in town.
Yeah, it's going to be actually a really important weekend for Alabama. They're going to be hosting 5-star defensive lineman David Hobbs for an official visit. Hobbs is getting closer to a decision timeline. He's been tweeting out multiple times about how he's getting closer to that commitment date, so he's going to be one to pay attention to. Initially expected him to be in attendance for the Texas A&M game. Didn't show up. He was there for the Tennessee matchup and against Alabama, and obviously Tennessee really impressed them. They're now leading on the On3 recruiting prediction machine, so the Crimson Tide will look to make up a little bit of ground there on that visit. And then also they're going to be playing host to Jordan Hall, a top 30 overall prospect in the 2023 class, for an official visit. Hall's an interesting one, Mick, because, we hadn't talked about him too much when it comes to defensive line recruiting, but, he's recently been hearing from Alabama a lot more over the past 2 or 3 weeks. Freddie Roach has been contacting him. Joe Cox has been in touch with him as well. So, he's one of the top defensive linemen in the country. On3 has him as the number 4 D lineman. So he'll be one to watch out for. I know Georgia has the heavy lead right now on the On3 RPM, but he referred to the Crimson Tide as his dream school in my conversation with him on Saturdays, and he'll be in town for an official this weekend. And then as for unofficial visits, James Smith, Quay Rousseau, it seems like we talk about them every single week, but they're going to be in town for unofficial visits this upcoming weekend. And those are the two top prospects in the state of Alabama, obviously major priority targets for the Crimson Tide, and the Crimson Tide are leading on the on 3 RPM for each of them. So they'll look to kind of extend that lead that they have. They're coming off official visits to the University of Florida, may end up taking official visits to Ohio State as well. But at this time, I like where Alabama stands with each of them. And, they're going to be hosting some 2024 prospects in town as well. I mentioned Julian Sayin, Jordan Lockhart, out of California. He's going to be there as well. So it's going to be a pretty significant weekend for Alabama. Not as big as the Texas A&M weekend, probably not as big as the Iron Bowl weekend next month, but one that we'll definitely be paying close attention to for sure.
He's Joseph Hastings. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, hit the bell as we talk to you for Monday Night Quarterback, brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. And in the comment section, guys, thank you, all of you guys, for being here tonight. And we've got, 120 eyes going right now on my screen. That means we need 120 thumbs up as we talk with Joseph about Alabama recruiting. Give me your takeaways from conversations with Kelby Collins and Jordan Hall.
Yeah, so this past weekend, I got to speak with both of them. They're 2 defensive lineman targets for Alabama. Kelby Collins is a very recognizable name for Crimson Tide fans. For better or for worse, he committed to University of Florida a couple of months ago, but is obviously still keeping in touch with Alabama. They got him on campus for an unofficial visit a couple of weekends ago for the Texas A&M game. And, I talked with him. He said he liked what he saw from the D-line and what they were able to do. They had, I believe, 14 quarterback hurries in that game, 3 sacks. So he liked what they were able to do in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. He said Alabama's the school right now that is pressing the hardest to flip him, from his Florida Gators commitment. And he may get on campus next month for an official visit. So, do not write out Bama on this one at all. He's someone who grew up a fan of the Crimson Tide. He lives less than an hour away from Tuscaloosa. Kelby Collins is one that I'm continuing to pay attention to. And when you talk about in-state defensive linemen that Alabama can flip, either him or Peter Woods, it definitely seems like Alabama's in the best position to flip Kelby at this time compared to Peter Woods. So, I was in terms of Alabama's chances, I definitely came away thinking from this conversation, thinking that they had a really good shot at pulling off this flip. but Florida is making it tough on them. And then as for Jordan Hall, I mentioned it before. He's going to be taking an official visit this weekend. Contact recently picked up with Alabama over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So we're kind of in wait-and-see mode with this one here. Does Georgia have an insurmountable lead in his recruitment? Or can Alabama come in and make a last-minute pitch to him and, get him on board? And, he said that they're in his top 4 right now. He likes what he's hearing from the coaching staff. I still believe the Crimson Tide are going to finish with probably the best defensive line class in this country, in this 2023 cycle. It just kind of remains to be seen who are going to be those final 2 or 3 guys who reserve spots in the class. Is it going to be Kelby Collins? Is it going to be Jordan Hall, Ruben Bain, James Smith? The list goes on and on, but there's plenty of good options there for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I'm excited to see how things start to pan out as we move down the stretch. But let's talk about where you're going to be coming up, and you're always all over the place doing your thing. What's next?
First off, thank you, Hovey, and thank you, Mike, for the comments and the subscription there, subscribing. I'm going to be in Atlanta next week, returning to the Peach State. Going to be able to check in on a couple of Alabama commitments and Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes. Not going to be able to see their games next week. I'm going to look to be in attendance for the games of some targets, Lawson Lucky and Tyler Scott. But, I'm hoping to catch up with Justice and Caleb, kind of see what's going on, the latest with them and Alabama, and then also other schools too. Obviously they're committed to the Crimson Tide, but they're hearing from Georgia, Ohio State. Those are the 2 schools pushing the hardest for each of them. Georgia head coach Kirby Smart and Ohio State head coach Ryan Day were in attendance for their game last week. The 2 played each other, and those 2 head coaches were in town, as was Alabama running backs coach Robert Gillispie. So I'm really interested in hearing, are they going to be taking any more visits, to schools not named Alabama? How hard is Ohio State and Georgia making it on both of them? So, looking forward to catching up with them. And then I'm going to be able to see Lawson Lucky, tight end target for the Crimson Tide. He's currently committed to Georgia. Alabama's trying to pull off a flip of their own on that one. And, they got him on campus for the Texas A&M game. Interested to hear his thoughts, what he had to say about that experience, and if he plans on returning to Alabama again. And then also Tyler Scott received an offer last week from the Crimson Tide after visiting. He's kind of a late bloomer. He was someone that wasn't really on the radar until a few weeks ago, but Travaris Robinson attended his game back in September. They liked what they saw. They ended up offering him. So I'm interested to see why Alabama likes him and what he brings to the table.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear, and we'll do that next Monday on Monday Night Quarterback right here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Don't forget, guys, to subscribe to BamaInsider.com. You get Joseph and Bone all the time, giving you the inside on Bama recruiting, which is looking really good right now. BamaInsider.com on 3. You get a year for $10, or if you just want to dip your toe in the water, go $1 for 4 months, but it's definitely worth it. Great to see you, Joseph, and Roll Tide, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Mick. Roll Tide, and we'll see you next week, man.
All right. Looking forward to it. Guys, show's brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominium right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. Find out more information at westgateal.com. That's where we'll be after the game. When Alabama wraps things up with Mississippi State, we'll be on the roof. We'll be breaking down the game. We'll be taking your calls, and that'll be right after Alabama and Mississippi State this Saturday. So it'll be a late night for us, but hopefully it'll be a good night to get back on track. That's what Alabama will try to do. But let's talk about the Tennessee game with a guy that's seen a lot of these games. And we kind of mentioned it last week. We were 2 of the only people in the world that remembered what it was like to see Tennessee win the game. And now we were also 2 of the only people that were talking about why you don't want to lose to Tennessee. And Tennessee's kind of, they've lived up to their reputation. They won the football game, and boy, they have let us know about it, haven't they, Jimmy?
Yeah, they've been a little noisy. I was called a few names on Twitter this weekend and today, and they've, and it's fine. It's fun. It's not fun for Alabama fans for losing, but hey, it was going to end at some point, and they do have a heck of a football team. We have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of maybe some bad play on Alabama's part, maybe some questionable officiating, but Tennessee is an outstanding football team, especially offensively. They rose to the occasion, and as much as Alabama richly deserved the loss, Tennessee richly deserved the win. They made a lot of big plays on offense, and Hendon Hooker's one heck of a football player.
Yeah, look, I agree. And they're a team I paid close attention to. I didn't think they would be able to attack Alabama's defense like they did. I've never seen Alabama's defense get whittled like that. Even Clemson with Deshaun Watson didn't put those kind of numbers up. But let me ask you this, Jimmy. What's the impact for Tennessee and what's the impact for Alabama? The win for Tennessee and obviously this close loss for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, it's huge, and of course, Mick, we're older than Joseph Hastings, but the reason we haven't seen Alabama pick apart like that is Alabama. That's the most points they've given up in 115 years.
Yeah,
we're older, but we're not 115. So we weren't around when Sewanee scored more points than Tennessee did in like 1907. But in terms of impact, it's really big. Let's just start with the standings. I mean, Tennessee remains unbeaten. They can win the East as big a game as there is in the SEC this season. That might surprise some people, but I do think Georgia will win. Different game away from Knoxville. And we'll see what happens. I certainly think Tennessee's capable of winning. They're a very good football team. Impact to Alabama standings wise, not much. Alabama still controls their own destiny. Alabama can win the West and go to Atlanta and play Tennessee again or Georgia by simply winning the remainder of their games. So the impact to Alabama isn't huge in terms of the standings, in terms of trying to win the SEC West and get to Atlanta and win the SEC. Negligible effect on Alabama, big effect on Tennessee because they remain tied with Georgia unbeaten. Looks like the winner of Tennessee-Georgia will go, shaping up to where, Mick, Alabama versus the winner of Ole Miss versus LSU, which is this weekend, looks really big. Whichever team, Ole Miss or LSU, wins that game is shaping up to be a pretty big one with Alabama. Alabama has to play both on the road in this brutal road schedule. I mean, brutal.
Yeah.
All the best teams Alabama plays this year, they're all on the road. Good luck. I mean, I don't think Ohio State and Georgia have to do that. I mean, that's a tough road, literally. But in terms of the effect on the standings, here's the good news. If Alabama can win the West and go to Atlanta just by winning out, that has not changed. And history says, we'll have to see how the season plays out. But history says, Mick, if you win the SEC and you are 12-1, you are in the playoff. That has happened every year up to this year. It would take a very strange set of circumstances for that not to happen. So Alabama still controls their own destiny. So the impact on the field isn't great. I do think the impact to the psyche might be greater because Alabama's not used to giving up 52 points. They're not used to this level of embarrassment, frankly. I mean, the defense should be embarrassed. I mean, giving up 52. I'm sure the defensive staff is. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond this weekend. And last year, they responded great after the loss to A&M, and I sort of expect to see the same this week.
I want to say thanks to Mike. He says he's got his subscription, and you'll be able to hang out with Jimmy on the message boards at BamaInsider.com. Let me know what you guys think. As you swing over there, $10 gets you an entire year or $1 for 4 months. But Mike, appreciate it, and thank you for being a member of BamaInsider.com. Apparently, the site's doing really well, and that's because of you guys that are hanging out here and then swinging over there to follow your team every single day. He's Jimmy Stein. I'm Mick Gillispie. This is Monday Night Quarterback, talking about Alabama and Tennessee. Jimmy, we got into it a little bit with Clint. Love to hear your perspective. I thought Bryce Young kind of proved again why he is so special. And honestly, he's Alabama's first Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. He may be the best quarterback that Alabama's ever had.
Couldn't agree more. You know, one thing, several bad things happen when you lose. And here's one more. Bryce's performance sort of gets lost. And credit Hendon Hooker, not taking anything away from that kid who was also spectacular Saturday. But had Alabama won the game, Mick, I don't think you'd find an Alabama supporter anywhere alive in this world today that wouldn't believe that Bryce is the best quarterback that's ever played at Alabama. For him to come off that injury and do what he did on Saturday, not only lead Alabama to 42 offensive points on the road, but to do so in that environment when Alabama was in a hole. I mean, 28-10 is a big hole when you have 102,000 people screaming into your head. And what Bryce did Saturday, I think, is just, as far as I'm concerned, part of Alabama lore. I thought it was as good as I've ever seen him. The fact, again, that he's coming off the shoulder injury, the fact he doesn't have Smitty and a Judy and a Ruggs outside, he's really having to spread it around and make it up as he goes. Really multiple fantastic plays made by Bryce on Saturday. Then mix that in with his early season runs with his legs. We didn't see that so much this week because he's trying to avoid hits, of course. And he did a good job of that. And in terms of the shoulder, the officials let him get hit in the head a few times, but he did protect the shoulder. I think I know this. I've been around. We talk about every week, Mick. We've been around for a while. I've been around for a while. Bryce is the best quarterback that's ever played at Alabama. That's my opinion. Better than Tua, better than Mac, better than Jalen. And frankly, I wasn't around for Namath and Stabler, but I'm familiar. And Bryce is the best quarterback that's ever played football at Alabama. I believed that before this weekend. This weekend just cinched it for me. There's no argument as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of staying on that point here, follow up. Is anyone ever going to step up at wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wide receivers sort of took a step forward. Now, not the step that everyone wants to see, not an alpha dog stepping up and being, hey, I'm the 200-yard guy, or hey, when you need 150, I'll get it for you. That guy hasn't stepped up. But what I'm seeing is a slight, let's call it like a youth movement here, where all of a sudden, as a fan, and I'm not in that wide receiver room, and I'm not on the field in the huddle, I'm just saying, as a fan of Alabama football, I want to see the ball going to 80. I want to see the ball going to 10. I want to see the ball going to 17. I'm not trying to flush those older kids, the Jermaine Burtons, the Ja'Cory Brooks, the Trayshawn Holdens. I'm not trying to flush them. I'm just saying that I'm getting a little excited about the younger guys. I think they're making a move, and maybe Alabama's future, and by that I mean these last 5 games, maybe these younger receivers are not going to be playing like freshmen in these next couple weeks. That off week is big. I've seen Alabama really improve a lot in an off week. They can get through this Mississippi State game with a win. I like, Mick, that maybe we're going to see Kobe Prentice, JoJo Earl, and Isaiah Bond, those 3 sort of take off. I think that's –
Tell you who did take off was I thought Cameron Latu had a great game.
He really did, catching the ball. Not sure. I've just now rewatching the first half today and this evening. He's got to improve a little bit as a blocker, but as a pass catcher, outstanding, really good. I was just bragging on him on the message board. We'll talk about. I'm just bragging on Latu. He, for a guy who's really a defensive player, recruited to Alabama to play defense, recruited by everyone to play defense, even though he did play some tight end in high school. He has a real natural feel for finding open space. He separates well. And I know people are like, that's impossible. He doesn't run like Bond. Well, you know what? Latu gains separation from the people covering him better than Bond does. And Bond runs a 4.3, but Latu has a real feel for getting open. And that's exactly what the NFL wants at that position.
All right, before we talk about what Alabama's going to do next, do me a favor. When you rewatch the game with your eyes, just tell me, I was very uncomfortable with the officiating. The time of some of the penalties, the inconsistency. I'm not sure whether it was just one of those days. Alabama made some mistakes, obviously, but to have 18 penalties, I felt like the timing of some of the penalties was suspect. Go back and watch that. I want to know what your thoughts are once you see the game over again. Maybe it's me, but I'll tell you what, I'm very disturbed by it. I heard Nick Saban's comments. That's as close as he's ever going to come to being critical of officials. I don't know. I mean, I guess to me, I talk gambling so much. It's just odd that one interception, one interference on a fourth down jump ball changes one team from being, cover to the other team, forget about the winning and losing, that all of a sudden now Tennessee is going to cover the spread, right? But I want your perspective. I don't want you to answer it now. Just remember me saying this. I just want to tell me I'm wrong, because that's really what I want to hear. So,
well, no, I mean, Alabama made errors in this game, and Alabama made enough errors to lose. I'm sure there's not too many Tennessee fans listening, and that's fine, but I don't want to get people confused when I blame the officials. Tennessee deserved to win the game. Tennessee deserved to win the game. They made the plays to win the game. They were a very good team, and they went out and won the game. Alabama made enough errors to lose 5 games, much less 1. It's on Alabama. Now, the officiating, this is what I find very, very strange. I think that's a flag-happy crew. That's what I mean by that. That's a crew that is not shy about putting the yellow laundry on the ground. I mean, they flagged Alabama 17, 18 times. How is a crew so not shy about throwing the flag, not throwing it when Alabama's quarterback gets hit in the head twice?
Or the Burton play. Or I'm with you, Jimmy. I mean, I'm just trying to I want someone to convince me that I'm wrong. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm right. I've watched tons of games. I don't ever remember feeling like this.
Yeah, the best analogy I can come up with, Mick, basketball officiating is harder than football to me.
Yeah.
Basketball officiating is really tough. And the hardest call to make in sports, as far as I'm concerned, in all sports, hardest call to make is block or charge. That's really hard, and officials get it wrong all the time. And they do, because even when you do instant replay, who the heck knows? I mean, block or charge is a coin flip so many times. I felt like Saturday, Mick, there were 10 or 12 block charge calls, and they all went against Alabama.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And you know what? You mentioned basketball. That's what it really did remind me of. It reminded me of some of these basketball games where you're like, you look at the box score at the end, one team's got like 25 fouls, and the other team, and they shot, I don't know, 30 free throws, and the other team shot 1. And you're going, wait a second here. But
that's right.
Somebody called in. I'm not even going to get in this. All right, let's move on. I want you to watch it over again, and you help me.
I have, and on my BamaInsider thread every week where I'll rewatch the game. Yeah. I did not intend, when I started the thread, when I watch every possession and tell everybody on BamaInsider on the message board what I feel about every possession, I literally didn't want to talk about the officiating. But as I rewatch it, I can't help it.
I figured it.
And it's not the calls on Alabama. I'm not saying they're making up fictional penalties. I'm upset about the calls that weren't on Tennessee.
Right. If you're going to call it that way, is what you're saying. Right. If you're going to call every foul, then you got to call every foul. Right. And I think that's what Nick Saban meant in his press conference. To me, I'm more of okay, I saw it the same way. Why? I'm not saying they tried to make Tennessee win. I'm just saying, now that you can gamble in every single state, you could tell your neighbor, hey, man, take Tennessee in the over and split the money with me and watch what happens. I mean, we've seen that in other sports. I saw guys a couple weeks ago putting weights in fish to win tournaments. So, look, don't put anything past anybody else. Maybe that's not why. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe it was the crowd, whatever. I don't know. But when I see something that makes me, when I get that feeling, that's my gut feeling, I'm wondering why. And I saw it the exact same way that you said it. I'm just wondering why they did that. And that's kind of the answer that I want. But anyway, all right, let's talk about Alabama. Jimmy, should we pack up? Is the season over, or will Alabama bounce back?
Maybe. Could be. What I think, though, is that, look, last year Alabama lost on the road at A&M in a frustrating game. And then the very next week, who did they play? Mississippi State. And they crushed Mississippi State. Actually, I think maybe the best performance of the year. It's either that or the game in Atlanta against Georgia. Alabama played outstanding against this Mike Leach Mississippi State team a year ago after a loss. And here you go. Here you get Mississippi State after the loss again. Alabama's defended the Leach offense really well. I like Alabama to win this weekend. I believe they'll bounce back similar to last year's team and win big. And then the season comes down to, Mick, the whole season, the regular season, the what we would call the autopsy of the 2022 football season. Alabama is the game at Oxford and the game in Baton Rouge. Two more tough road games that Alabama would have to win to get to the postseason. But one at a time, let's take the Mississippi State game as an opportunity to improve, because Mississippi State will do some of the same things Tennessee does. They play fast. They throw it a lot. They have a high-quality quarterback. I think it's an excellent opportunity for Alabama to prove, hey, what you saw last week, that was us at our worst. That was us at our worst, and don't judge us. Don't judge us on us at our worst. Judge us on what we do week to week over the course of 12 games. And I like Alabama to bounce back and look pretty good against Mississippi State Saturday.
Yep. All right. The one last thing we're going to talk about, kicker Will Reichard. He would have had a Daniel Moore print in his honor had he made that kick. Had he made that kick, he would be right here on the wall with all the rest of these, right? I could see Danny just drawing him up. It would have been amazing. But instead he missed, and then they go down the field and kick a field goal. What's going on with Reichard?
Yeah, it's 50. First of all, it's a 50-yard field goal. This is not a chip shot. That's a big boy kick. That would be a big boy kick on Sunday, just like it was a big boy kick on a Saturday. And then it's to win the game. Hey, one of my favorite sayings that I use all the time about sports, period, not just Alabama, but sports, is there is a 3-foot putt and there is a 3-foot putt to win the Masters. And those are two entirely different putts. They are not the same. And Reichard missed the 3-foot putt to win the Masters. I think for Will Reichard to get back, the key is get back to 3-foot putts. Let's make some 3-foot putts. I think it's big for Will this weekend to end up with 2 or 3 opportunities for some very makeable kicks. And let's get that rhythm back of putting the ball and listening to it go in the cup. That's what any putting coach would tell you. If you're not putting well, putt from 2 feet, putt from 3 feet. Listen to the face of your putter hit the ball, and then listen to the ball go into the cup. That's what Reichard needs to do. He needs to make 2 or 3 very makeable field goals. I know it's crazy because you got to win the game first. I'm almost hoping, Mick, Alabama has a 4th and 2 at the 19 and let Will kick the ball. And I know that Nick Saban says no, and fans go, no, you got to win the game. Reichard needs to make a few kicks because you're going to need Will at the end of LSU and Baton Rouge, or at the end of Ole Miss and Oxford, or even in Atlanta. The first Saturday in December, you're going to need Will to make a big kick. So he needs to make some kicks, and it would be very fortunate if those were 20, 25, and 30-yarders to get this confidence back real quick.
Yeah, look, I'm with you there. One of our, great viewers, listeners said that he has trouble kicking from the right hash. I haven't gone back and said, okay, right hash, left hash. I mean, he kicked the ball high and it was far enough and it was right down the middle. Unfortunately, you kind of had to hook it a little bit. Have you noticed that?
Well, I would just respond to that to say, hey, and I don't know the numbers, and maybe this guy does, which is awesome because, man, there are so many smart Alabama fans out there that track everything. I'm amazed all the time at what I learn. It's a great thing about the BamaInsider message board, by the way. I'm dispensing my opinions and my knowledge and my takes. I learn a lot, too.
Me too.
From other fans' takes. So that guy might be right. But what I would tell Will, and I'm sure Will isn't saying this, but I would tell Will, if Will's like, yeah, I'm not as good on the right hash, I would tell him, hey, on Sundays they play from the right hash too. I mean, you're going to have to make kicks on the right hash in that Sunday league you'd like to play in, where they pay the big bucks. They expect you to make it from the right hash and the left hash and any hash they come up with. So it's not an excuse. I doubt Will looks at it as an excuse. And I assure you, in practice, when he's practicing kicks, he doesn't just put it on the left hash or in the middle of the field. These are kicks he's worked on his whole life. And I don't think Will Reichard would agree. I'd just say Will would tell you he should have made the kick. And
right.
it's 50 yards, though.
It is a long kick, but he would be a legend right now. You know what, though, Jimmy? I'm going to close on this. I am going to be a little bit critical. I'm throwing myself in this. It's not just Bama fans, me included. We have become a little bit complacent. And when I was in Knoxville this week, I saw the same passion that we used to have when Nick Saban showed up in 2007, when we had a sellout for the 8A game, you know, a fan base that was hungry and they were passionate. You know, we've got to get back to that, you know, and that includes, that's all of us. You know, we love Alabama, and it might not just be, you know, the people on here tonight obviously love the Tide, but I'm just saying as a whole, that was impressive. That's the thing I'm leaving there with. The most impressed from was just how hungry Tennessee was, their fan base, to make that crowd. The stadium was a hostile environment. We need to get back to that. You know, our home games are okay, but it's not like that. It used to be. It's not like that. You know, we're not selling our tickets to the other team. They didn't want to sell them. They all wanted to be there for it. We got to travel. We got to take advantage of this because we're so lucky to be part of this dynasty right now. We got to find. I think we got to find that passion a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. I think that we could do a lot better than what we're doing supporting the team from time to time.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. Not going to get into our attendance at national championship games, but I've gone to basically all of them, and the very first ones in 09 and 11 and 12, and Alabama showing up big time, and then 16, 18, even 20. Of course, that was COVID, but yeah, hey, and this is what Alabama fans can do, and I know they will. And that's, how about this Saturday, instead of showing up wanting answers, how about showing up and supporting the kids and supporting the players and being loud Saturday night against a really good Mississippi State team. They got dudes, man. Will Rogers is a dude. Alabama had issues defending Hendon Hooker. Will Rogers is a real good quarterback. They have some playmakers at wide receiver. They're good on defense. That corner Forbes, I would take that kid in the first round. Their corner, Emmanuel Forbes, great player. Mississippi State's got some dudes. This is a good team. Didn't play well at Kentucky. Kentucky held them to 17. If I'm Pete Golding, I'm challenging my defense. Hey, Kentucky held them to 17. Let's not let them get 17 on the board. We've held them to 9 total in the last 2 matchups.
Right.
I would watch for some defensive intensity, and don't let Kentucky outplay us defensively. I bet that might be a message this week from Pete Golding to his guys.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. And then the other thing is, for all of us that are here and we're passionate, let's remind everyone that this doesn't last forever. I mean, you lose a game and it's like you lose 2 and all of a sudden you're out this year, you know? We don't have that many home games that matter. We got this one, and then we got the big one at the end of the season. And I'll tell you this, forget about the one at the end of the season. We'll be ready for that one. But this one on Saturday, let's bring some heat. Let's go to LSU and take that stadium over, right? Let's show up in Oxford and support this team because there's a lot of good things that could be on the horizon for those guys, Jimmy.
Hey, you know what? For as bad as Saturday felt, for as bad as it was, there is a shot at redemption. The redemption's not against Mississippi State. It's not even in Oxford or Baton Rouge. The redemption is in Atlanta when you get another shot at Tennessee or possibly a Georgia team that beat Tennessee. But you don't just get to go to Atlanta. You got to win your way there.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you win on that Saturday in Atlanta, and I'm not saying people forget what happened in Knoxville, but you have redeemed yourself. You lay off. Alabama has plenty of opportunity to redeem that loss, but the redemption is in Atlanta. That means one win at a time, one game at a time. It's the Stark-Villers this weekend, and that's a good ball team. And what I like, Mick, again, is that they will present some of the same challenge as Tennessee did. So an excellent opportunity for our defense to say, hey, what happened to Knoxville? That's not us.
Right. I hear you, man. All right. Well, Jimmy, great talking to you. Don't forget to join Jimmy on the Bama Insider message board, BamaInsider.com. He's there all the time doing his thing, talking to you guys, cutting it up, getting into football and all kind of other stuff. Him and Clint Lamb are beasts on there with so many of you guys that are here. And maybe if you're not, hey, jump on there with them. But right now is a good time. You can get a year's membership for $10, dip your toe in the water, $1 for 4 months. And it's worth it. Check it out for yourself. Also, don't forget our show tonight, brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Find out more at westgateal.com. We'll be there Saturday after the game, hopefully talking about an Alabama victory. So make sure you join us right here on the YouTube channel as soon as the clock hits 000. Thank you, Jimmy.
Appreciate it, Mick.
Hey, roll tide. All right, so great conversations tonight. Clint Lamb, Joseph Hastings, and Jimmy Stein, Chris Daughtry behind the scenes. Special thanks to Kyle Henderson and our entire crew here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. I'm Mick Gillispie. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, guys. Andrew Bone and his recruiting show comes on tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We'll have Anytime Nick Saban Talks, including today's press conference. You can go on our channel, check that out. The players got them as well. Go find out for yourself and cover Alabama with us. Help us follow the tide here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out with us. Roll Tide, everybody.